Hello, and welcome to another episode of Otaku in Training. I am your host, LB. Joining me, as always, is my co host, CT.
Good evening.
And this month, we only have one trainee because the other trainee used her brain and decided to bow out of this episode early on. And so we have Bran with us.
Hi. Yes, I am the one that did not use my brain. I am responsible for all of this.
You used your brain.
Yeah, well, yes, I guess I did, unfortunately.
So, alright, the topic of this episode is the anime adaptation of the video game Senran Kagura. So, with that in mind, we're just going to jump right into things. Before we start talking about the series and what story there is, I want to go ahead. I want to turn our attention over to Bran because Bran is the one who suggested this series to us. So, Bran is the reason why we are talking about it tonight. So, I need to know, did this series live up to any or all of your expectations or wildest dreams?
Uh, hmm. I tried to go in with low expectations, I think. So, in that regard, I think it did all right. um, it was I had a little bit of trouble watching it undistracted.
Mm.
Um, it is kind of hard to keep focused while watching this show. um, but yeah, I think I didn't know what to expect going into it, so I don't think it was a letdown. That's for sure.
Well, you had the video game connection of some
Yeah.
sort going in, but was it having played things, or was it having
No.
played the food version
No.
of it, or what transpired here?
I used to write for a game site. I did news stuff occasionally, editorial stuff more often, but I still did some news stuff. And I did a couple of brief articles about one of the Senran games coming out at some point. And I was like, so it was one of those things where I was like scrolling through a list of anime and I was like, oh, I vaguely remember something about that. So yeah, let's do that. And I actually went back and looked to see when I wrote that article. And it was like 6 years ago or something. Like it was a long time ago. So I completely forgot about it. It was just like an echo in my mind. And I was like, I recognize the name. Let's go with that one.
So it wasn't a review from having played the game. It
No.
was more of a preview or just announcing news about or
Yeah, it was not even like a fancy news article. This was one of those like, bam, they sent out a press release and
ah,
yeah,
here,
it was one of
minorly
those deals.
rewrite this.
Basically, yeah, that's the kind of news that was. We took pride in, adding maybe a little bit of color and humor to that. But yeah, that's basically what that kind of thing amounted to.
Do you remember which it was? Was it one of the mainline ones or one of the splinter games like the first person water gun shooter?
So I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was like a crossover with God, what's the
Neptunia?
Food Wars or something?
Oh, well,
Uh, I can't remember. There was definitely food. There was a beach, I think, but that's about all I remember about it.
yeah. Bon Appetit
Maybe that.
was their food music kind of game, but I don't remember it being a crossover. They have done the occasional crossover, to my knowledge, for like what is it, the shooter one that I mentioned, Peach Beach Splash. I know had a bunch of crossover characters like
Yeah.
Neptunia and Ikitosen, but yeah. So no knowledge of the game, but probably surface level knowledge from the cover art.
Yeah,
And the one paragraph description of what went on.
I will say that is I did not know much going into this, but I did watch, like, Funimation had just like a clip, and it was like a 2-minute clip, and I was like, I'm gonna watch that clip, and that'll give me an idea of what this is before I go, you know what, let's watch this. And it was like literally the opening scene of the show,
Right.
and I think that basically tells you what the show is. That's the whole thing right there in that like 2-minute clip.
I feel like the very beginning of it might let you actually think it would be a bit more, actiony and
Yeah,
ninja-y than it ends up being very shonen-y.
I guess that's true. I think I did probably have a little bit more of a that kind of impression of it than, I mean, to an extent it does get more uh school slice of life, oddly enough,
Mm.
than I was really expecting. And I just, yeah, I guess it was a little bit different in that regard.
Well, they need downtime to shower and bathe and go to the
And
beach and they
eat
eat
sushimi
maki
or whatever.
rolls
Yeah.
and
Like
talk about
every
being friends.
episode. Or get the fire going. That too.
Oh man, only that one episode, but they didn't have maki available because Hanzo wasn't there. So
Yeah.
therefore, they couldn't have a Futamaki chef
Yes.
deliver
That's what
them
it was.
uncut, pure sushi rolls that they only ever eat the first fifth,
Yeah.
maybe, of. So
Yeah.
perhaps we should loop around to the beginning
Yes.
and describe what is this show. What is its
Who
essence?
wants the honors of describing this one?
I mean, I'll take a go at it.
All right, all right. Let me hear your rendition of, with reasonable amount of detail, what is the overall story to this series?
All right. So, this show is about booby ninjas.
To be fair, and I'd like to have it noted that I was very tempted to name this episode Booby Ninjas, and then I decided not to.
Now
Listen,
hold on. That could be. Are these boobies that are themselves ninjas, or are they ninjas with boobies?
they are ninjas with boobies,
Okay.
as opposed to the evil ninjas, who by and large do not have boobies. Uh, which I knew, it was a pretty stark too. It's like on the scale of like how relatable they're supposed to be to like the protagonist shinobi, like the more you're supposed to relate to them, the more boob they have. It's like it doesn't even kid around.
I feel like 3/5 of the bad ninjas still had an awful lot of boobie going on here.
Oh, sure. I just mean in comparison, like
In comparison, three
absolutely.
fifths
Uh,
double H plus as opposed to
yeah,
5/5.
right. Uh, but so in the basic idea is that there are these girls that go to a school, but really they're going to a shinobi school that's hidden in the school, and they are training to be ninjas, basically, and they are sort of getting attacked by evil ninjas from an evil school in the mountains or something. Um, it's a little bit unclear as to why for a while, and then they reveal that there's something going on with some mystical stuff and some ninja scrolls.
Ninja Scroll. We should
Yeah,
watch that.
yeah, but it doesn't really focus too much on that. It is mostly just focused on uh, these girls training to be ninjas and the really ridiculous ways they train and the uh, I don't know. I'm not sure how to describe it. Lewd activities they get up to in between. Lots of showering scenes where they reassure each other. Things like that. It's oof. That's mostly what
Excuse
this
me,
is.
I believe we need to clarify. Is there a character who constantly gropes the main character?
Yes,
Okay.
because
So
they're
then we're safe.
because,
We're,
and this is important to understand. It is because they are family, not
Ah.
like blood family, but the idea that they are family is a very important part of how close knit this group is. And so, like you would any family member, when things are down, you grope your sister, I guess.
Sure. This is
and,
how I
and
greet my brother all the time with
yes, you
family
juggle their
groping.
boobs. Yeah, like in the first, like I said, like the first 2 minutes, it's like a rooftop battle thing that's going on, and you see up people's skirts like 5 times. You're constantly looking down cleavage, or like there's points where everything's in shadow except for the cleavage and the eyes. Um, Smoke bombs come flying out from under people's skirts. It's a special shinobi technique, apparently, to shove the thing that you are trying to protect down your shirt. Uh, but there may be a decoy or something, so I don't know. It's very
It's
weird, but
probably some kind of cleavage portal
sure.
shinobi skill going on here.
What shinobi kenkai or whatever, right?
Yes.
There's little zone in there. I don't know. I don't know how that works. Maybe that's why all of the ninja, all of them, are women, except for the old guys.
You got to have a token teacher of some sort who can, and an old guy who can perv on them on occasion.
Yeah, I mean,
Very
if
important.
you have to, for an anime like this, you absolutely have to have the old pervy guy. And, I think they managed to go the entire, I don't know, 12 episodes or whatever, and his nose never bled, which is weird. Because I feel a little bit let down. Like there's a commitment there.
Well, Hanzo is the grandfather of our main ninjas, the one to whom, obviously, all of the everyone's hopes and dreams must be attached. She has some kind of unfulfilled destiny to go, and the school is named after him, so he can't be fully pervy. He's gotta hold back a little bit, except that he supplies the Futamaki constantly.
And literally sits there and watches them eat it.
Well, you have to, otherwise, how would you know if you prepared it properly?
Right, of course.
It's a chef thing.
So that's basically what this show is. There's something about ninja scrolls and lots of groping in boobs and skirts. Oh, lots and lots of bikinis.
Yes,
because that is the health bar for these ninja are their clothes. And I feel like that is a stroke of brilliance in this show that is otherwise, like, I really did have so much trouble like focusing on this show because it was just like, oh my god, that's just so much boob. Like I can't even see what's going on. I'm trying to read the subtitles. I'm here for the subtitles, and the boobs are like juggling behind them.
Just swaying all over the place and inappropriate camera angles. I don't think that is the stroke of brilliance. Yes,
No.
obviously your health bar being reflected by how much clothing and armor remains on you is there. I think the stroke of brilliance is that when they go into a power up mode, wherein they're in a death duel, then it's just straight bikini, nothing else, no semblance of armor, and that's so that their power and maneuverability go up along with their bikini technology.
Yeah, see, Goku powers up by like screaming and then the rocks around him start breaking. these people power up by saying something in a very high pitched voice, and then their clothes just fly off. They don't even do. I don't even think they really do the de-transformation. Like they have the magical girl transformation thing in this show, but like they don't do like a different one. Their clothes just kind of fly off.
Well, it's interesting because they're always in a school uniform to start with, and regular panties,
Yeah.
probably some sort of shimapan that you've already seen 2 or 3 times in that episode already.
Yeah.
And they transform, but the first thing that they do before they transform are wearing a bikini. So they
Yeah.
don't do like the glowy naked silhouetting. It's they no longer have regular underwear. They now have the bikini, and then they
Right.
have something over the bikini, but it's usually for some characters barely less revealing than the bikini.
Yeah.
So it's just fun time. Sorry. Is there any not fan service in this anime?
Not off the top of my head.
So, alright, I think we've got a pretty good idea of what the quote-unquote story of this series is.
Yeah.
So, let's go ahead.
Well, we've
let's be
described the
fair.
aesthetic.
Well, I want to know, during the last few minutes, you guys were talking about, little strokes of genius along the way.
Sure.
I'm kind of curious, was there anything in the first episode, and we're limiting this to the first 1 or 2 episodes, was there anything in those first episodes that gave you hope that this was not going to be just boobs jiggling for the next 12 episodes with a semblance of plot? Was there anything that gave you hope that there would be substance to this?
You want to go ahead, CT?
I wasn't going to override the opinion, but no, literally nothing. I watched half of the first episode, and with a heavy sigh, kept pushing it off, and slogging through a tiny bit more, then pushing it off. I marathoned this thing because I pushed it off too far.
Yeah.
I had to marathon 11 and a half episodes of Senran Kagura so that I could talk about it. And, whoo boy.
Let nobody say you are not a consummate professional.
Yes, I take this job very seriously.
I think, all right, there was enough, like, the characters got along well enough that I was like, I can see this going in a direction like that. That is entertaining. They did also have the most variety of, like, boob gags and stuff, I think, in the first episode.
Mhm.
So, like, I was already, like, I spent most of the first episode kind of, like, chuckling a little bit at that stuff, and it was starting to wear off towards the end of the first episode. But yeah, so, like, I felt like I did have some hope, and then, probably by, like, the third episode, I was like, oh boy, which is weird because flash forward, like, the last few episodes, I actually found somewhat entertaining in just, like, the mythos and actual characters, because it does kind of, like, stop just constantly going for the boob stuff. Like, there's lots of people in bikinis and whatever, but
by the end, they're all in their bikinis for the final battle, which is how all final battles should be. To be
yes,
fair,
if speed runs of Dark Souls have taught us anything, that is definitely it.
The other problem for me is it was immediately apparent that it was just going to lead into every tiresome shonen trope that they could possibly cram in. Every shonen battle trope and everything there. My only hope was that, the ninja stuff could be flashy or interesting enough, and it rarely peaked out from there. But to me, it was not just the overload of I appreciate a good Gynax bounce. I was there at the nascent beginning of Gynax bounciness. There were good things to be have, but not strange. Just the requirement that every time a character shift position or point at a thing or nod slightly too vigorously, the boobs gotta bounce poorly, very badly. Like, I don't know if there was a third as much, but they added quality to it, then maybe that would have been something more. But honestly, it was getting creepy. just
It was getting creepy. It didn't
the
start
the amount of it and the lack of fidelity of it. It was some kind of uncanny valley of implied sexiness that made it just creepy. So what about you, LB, with the first couple?
So, I got my start as a reviewer. So, I've watched a lot of bad anime over the years, and the thing is with watching bad anime is that you have to remember that no matter what you're watching, whatever you're watching is somebody's favorite. So you have to find the good. Sometimes you have to dig really, really deep to find it. So, in that case, with that said, I do want to say that in the first episode, the whole Kekai zone where they were fighting in this mystical little realm that they were able to channel whenever they felt the need, and also the fact that they were ninja with magical girl transformations, that amused me. It didn't amuse me a lot, but it amused me. I was like, okay, I can be kind of here for this. That is at least amusing to me. Um, I would also like it to be said that even though this ignoring the unnatural boob physics, ignoring that, if you look at like the fight sequences and everything and just general flow of things, the animation from Artland wasn't that terrible. I mean, yeah, the unnatural boob physics were distracting beyond distracting. But I mean, like, the overall product, the animation wasn't that bad. You have to give them at least that much.
Sure.
I think the
give
animation was
credit.
good for what it was doing, right? Like,
Yes.
I don't, it's not supposed to be ridiculously realistic or anything like that. Like, it is doing a thing, and I think it does it well. I mean, again, boob physics aside,
Yes.
because
do we know if they were the ones doing the animation sequences in the games, or
I would have to double check that.
But I will say, like, personally, having watched 12 episodes of this, it's like the way everything is designed. You got to give them credit too for like thinking it's all funny, right? Like, they're not just being creepy for the sake of being creepy. They think it's all absurd, and they are leaning into the absurdity and trying to be funny with it. And I think they managed to somehow get 12 episodes out of a very narrow comedic like space.
but there's a good half dozen OVAs and more seasons of this. They stretch a lot more.
Yeah.
Well, I did go into this having watched some gameplay, and I'd seen a bit of it over the years, like some of the other ridiculous things. Oh gods, I forget the name of it now. Onechanbara,
Yeah.
which is that ridiculous glammed up gals killing zombies game. So just weird schlock anime boob action titles. I have seen, I have witnessed, I know what they're doing. The while you're saying that they're having their zones and stuff like that, I'm just like, well, that's the translated game mechanics, so that you can do the wandering around the map and then Final Fantasy summon your battlefield, so you can fight a whole bunch of faceless minions for a good long time until you get to the mid boss or the boss for each level, and go from there. I'm like, it's very video gamey.
Mm-hmm.
Not shocking. But so yeah, I mean the animation overall is perfectly serviceable for this.
Mm-hmm.
They have some cute, like, actual art splashes between screens. I dropped a few in our screenshot spam, but it is not a high bar.
So we've talked about the good in this series, and honestly, there's not a whole lot there to discuss. So I think really the only logical thing for us to do at this point is to just take it as it is and determine which aspect of this series turned you off the most. Like, was it the writing? Was it the lack of plot? Was it the boob physics? What turned you off the most that made you that kept you from almost being able to hit the next episode button?
I'd say there are two things that really got me. One was that literally every single fight scene had to go to that like death match phase with the, like full on whatever, and one hit will kill you kind of thing. I'm like, yes, I get it. We don't. Every fight does not have to be this. It's a little bit much. There's like it's just like a pacing, like a little bit more pacing, and every fight doesn't have to do that. The other one is I cannot remember any of their names, um, but uh, the boob grabber, her
Katsuragi.
the outfit she transforms into, I just can't stand it. It's so bad. Even, every part of it, right? Like the way the shirt just like falls, like, in some ways, very impressive. The different ways they manage to get that shirt to fall, that it's like not actually revealing any nipple. Like they do a pretty good job, and with the tie, but
there's
like,
there's so much
man,
volume of breast in this, and zero
so
volume of nipple. That's
yeah,
probably the most skill they had involved, was hiding
yeah.
those.
But
But
I hated that outfit
just
so
just
much.
just to describe further, the character being described is Katsuragi. She's a third year. She's a senior. She comes across as the blonde Yankee. She's got the
Yes,
toughest voice and the roughest personality, and she's the strong one, and doesn't really wield a weapon. She's the brawler. So when she transforms, basically she transforms and loses. Uh, she's still wearing her school blazer, but loses everything underneath it. So it's just like it's torn open,
yeah.
exposing literally everything underneath, and staying like glued to barely covering nipple level.
I'm sure
And
that listeners will be shocked to know that she was not wearing a bra underneath.
ah, right, no undershirt, no bra, no nothing. And then instead of floppy socks going all Kogal like, she's just got these big pseudo metally
They're
kicky
Mega Man
boots
boots.
kind of thing. Yeah, yeah, she's got like Mega Man boots.
Yeah.
But she doesn't use them to fly around. She just has
No.
normal jumping skills, and these don't get in the way of that. It's just there to, make for super kicks and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And that's what she does. And she gets to fight the dark version of the person who is the brawler and literally wears like a professional wrestling uniform when she transforms. It's great.
So, all right, CT, how about you? What was
the question?
What were the primary things that turned you off about this series? What was the main things that made it difficult to hit the next episode button?
I mean, we've already talked about the oppressive, poor level of fan service conveyance in here. And it's the kind of thing where I'm like, if you're gonna go to this ridiculous degree, and yes, obviously it was knowing, it was ironically used a lot of the time. It was tongue in cheek, but it wasn't done like in an interesting fashion the way something like, say, Keijo is obviously self-aware, but they like built the plot around it, and somehow it was so far over the top as to become boring, and other things became interesting through it. But that's such an easy answer that I don't want to give it time, because
okay,
it's obviously the biggest presence. I think a lot of it just comes down to trying to wedge in those tropey moments of, okay, here's a character thing and the development thing, and it's a thing for this one episode, and then it's forgotten about again, like Asuka, our main protagonist, being afraid of frogs, and then Ikaruga, the leader of the bunch, tricks her into saving a frog to get over her thing, and now she can summon her spirit animal frog thing. I'm like, literally doesn't show up again. I guess she gets her twin slash, but you barely recognize that there was somehow a frog element tied to this.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, everyone else gets a super animal that does crazy stuff, like a giant tripping squid. Yes, the rat. That is the only good thing about Hibari.
Yeah.
Is her fluffy rabbit. It makes me think a bit of the idiot rabbits from Witchcraft Works. But very, very entertaining. And then you get the baddies who have their thing, and it feels like they're just picking and choosing from a couple of the games. And I don't know how long these games run for. I'm guessing they probably ultimately have more content than this implied by it, because they can do a lot more conveyance just with screenshots and chucking a lot of text out there and doing a crazy thing. But it feels like they're just grabbing elements and like, oh yeah, this is for this character and this is for this character, and they're just tossing it in there, and it'll either get forgotten or it's like, and therefore you care about that character, right? And the bad character who wanted to potential, who has no problems killing anyone that gets in their way, well, they had a sad time back here, and therefore they're not really evil, and therefore you can root for them by the end. But you kind of have this with all of the characters, but it's such shallow, undeveloped stuff, both for our protagonist squad and our antagonist squad. The only one that I kind of like is Rin's, because she has a through line from a lot of episodes, right? When they go to that secret island, she gets more but then she doesn't really get the payoff at the end either. It's just very simple. But each one of them, it's like, okay, we did our due diligence with that character. We told the thing about them. On to the next one. I'm like, ah.
Yeah, I think it was like an episode where they did the backstories for all of the antagonist ninjas, and there's like, I don't know, 5 or 6 of them or something.
Well, that's one of those shonen tropes when they start into the quasi tournament arc of each of them fighting them in a row and having to do it. That's where when they're in the middle of fighting, then you get the oh man, here was the bad thing that they had, and that's why they joined the dark. And flashback. Then it all right. Yomi, the bean sprout girl, who was probably best girl overall. She was very concerned with bean sprouts and the nouveau riche and the expense of bean sprouts. I believe the message was most fully conveyed through Yomi here. But it's like, oh no, now I learned about you, and you were adopted, and now I can't hate you. And I'm like, mm-hmm. But all of their stuff was in service of Hibari telling them, oh no, they can be killed at any moment by the actual bad guy. Let's save them.
I didn't know this came from a video game. I assumed that it went the other direction because, I don't know, maybe it's just exposure to Western games where that's usually the direction. But I didn't know that. And so like the last 2 episodes of the show, of the 12 episode season or whatever,
right,
is basically just the end of the game boss rush.
Right. It's the climbing the tower to defeat the big bad. I'm curious. I did want to look up a bit more and see, like, was this simply the plot of the first game made manifest? Which I feel probably, because I think some of the immediate next ones have Homura and the Serpent Academy girls, the antagonist squad, become their own heroes of later versions of Senran Kagura. So I figure they had to be established in the first game so that they could carry next ones. But I'm not sure. I did not do that much research. So what about you, LB? In the end, I think you mentioned you had 4 more to go to finish off today to polish it off. And Brand basically said, do you really have to?
Yeah.
What was keeping you and what allowed you to go through? What was the biggest speed bump to fight through? The most powerful ninja barrier that you had to literally charge through and lose life force to finish this off.
For me, it was the bits with the entire series was guilty of lazy writing. That was not a secret. But when they had the super lazy writing, that's when I had major issues. Like their secret item being literally called the super secret ninja art scroll.
But it was super secret. It was an extra level of secret.
Yeah, that right there was really bad. And then I really, really disliked that our heroes were referred to as good ninja and the bad guys were referred to as evil ninja.
I think I thought they were more often.
These are the adjectives we're going with.
Yeah.
How often were they called that as opposed to light and dark? Because I thought light and dark were used more of it. Actually, that brings us to it. Did you watch this dubbed or subbed?
Subbed.
Okay.
I couldn't find the dubbed.
Me either.
Well, yeah. I suppose I know it exists, but yeah, if it's not on, if it wasn't sitting on Funimation, then you'd have to pirate it from somewhere.
Yeah, I thought for sure that the dub was available on Funimation,
You'd
which was
think.
partially the reason why I didn't like back out of this series like almost right away, because I thought that I was going to be able to watch it dubbed. But and then by the time I realized that it was only sub only, it was just like, oh, okay, fine.
I thought they used light and dark more than good and evil, but obviously those blur into each other.
Yeah.
And of course, in
Yeah,
the
I
end,
could.
the lesson to be learned was that, you know, light and dark are not explicitly good all the way and evil all the way. There's a balance between them, and
So
baby's
I.
first morality.
So I. If you, there are a lot of things about this series that could be made better. So let's play a hypothetical, and we're gonna start with CT this time. If you could choose one thing about this series to improve on, just one, what would you choose to make the series better? If you could fix one thing to make it better.
Again, the elephant in the room is to probably make the fan service less insane, and maybe that would be not so off-putting, but you could still lead into it hard because that's what the games are all about as well, but you could make it not quite so crazy. Again, that's the easy answer. It would be something like I mentioned before, uh make the bouncing 25 to 33% of what it is rather than as much as they go, and increase the quality of it, release the animators from the boob jiggle mines. um Give, say, one character a prominent panty exposing arousing shot in an episode in a thing rather than all five of them
Yeah.
every episode.
Mm-hmm.
uh Again, it seems like such a mammoth thing. I think the only thing that I could suggest improving would be to give them an actual through line, which would mean to fix Suzune Sensei and Rin and what she has to do, because she's implied with the super completely not lazy writing of wanting to be a super ninja.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes.
like,
Only
right,
only
drawing
person
that
to
on a
ever
raptor.
want that.
She's implied, she's given stuff, but I know, I mean, we know what's going on from the beginning, and you probably couldn't hide it, but the main thing would be to improve her storyline a bit and figure out more of a purpose for it. She kind of declares at the end that there was a problem with the way the light did it, so therefore the dark was more powerful. But oh no, did I do it wrong? But in the end, she still trained a bunch of shinobi who cared about each other in a learning to be like family way that is supposed to pay off at the end. I feel like if that was more aimed as Rin's objective, and that what she was trying to build a point around were the flaws in the light side of the force here, like, oh, you failed in a mission and now you have to kill yourself in retribution, which is what happened to Katsuragi's parents, except they ran away instead. And that's her driving force. She wants to be a great ninja because her parents screwed up a mission and therefore had to die. And I'm like, what? I know that the whole daimyo era of Japan was filled with an awful lot of gutting yourself for honor here, but this is a more modern thing, and maybe if you're calling yourself light, which means only individuals with a clean record, that kind of thing is weird. as in they can't have killed someone, except you're expected to kill people who fail in a mission. I'm like, wait a minute. If they firmed around that and gave Rin kind of a through line of being your enemy, but really what she's doing is challenging the system in a way, using girls who could be good shinobi but wouldn't be accepted at the Hanzo Academy with the light faction because of who they are. You could have paid something off with that by the end, but they didn't decide to do that. That'd be my single change, though.
Yeah. I think I would shift the balance of boobage against the story, basically. Like, I think there's bones here that can be used to make a show that it's not maybe not going to be a great show, but like it's totally fine and like popcorny and actually corny, like I thought some of the corny stuff was fine and like kind of enjoyable, and the characters kind of, they bounced off each other all right, and like
A lot of bounce.
the background shinobi stuff, like, yeah, I mean, did they super simplify it with like, good and evil ninjas and stuff like that? Sure. But like, there's even a part where they're like, yeah, we take in all of the people that you good ninjas kick out, basically, and we give them a home, because that's what evil ninjas do, and it's like, you know what, there's like something there that like you can kind of work with. I think, like, if you actually gave yourself the room to work with it. And yeah, I would ease off of the boobage a little bit, in very much the way that CT was saying, of like, you don't need all of it all the time in every episode. Yeah, focus on a character, and like, yeah, maybe there's peripheral stuff going on, but like mostly, yeah, like you don't need every episode to have all of them in their underwear every single time. It's just too much. It just doesn't go anywhere. Yes, I would also agree. Sorry, there are a bunch of pictures popping up in my Discord now, and yes, absolutely, wrestling a polar bear. That was great.
They're hiking
that
trip.
part in.
They go on a hiking challenge, and it's given a name: Herculean Incitement to Kindle Incredible New Gambits.
Yeah,
which is great.
but yeah,
Definitely
the lore type stuff is kind of silly, but like, sure, show me more of the fucking bunny and the squid and, ridiculous stuff like that. Like, go ridiculous in that direction a little bit more and ease off of the ridiculousness of the boobs. And I think it could have been a perfectly, I still kind of enjoyed it, but like, I think I enjoyed it despite the fact that it was very lopsided, because like the end stuff was totally fine and they weren't obsessively centering boobs all the time. And so like I kind of liked that better, and I kind of enjoyed the silliness of like the boobage earlier on. So like if you just spread both of those out a little bit more, make it a little bit more even, maybe add a little bit more story and lore type stuff, I think it's good.
See, my big thing, I think, had they done one thing differently, I may have cared about this series a little bit more. And that would have been to move those episodes where they reveal all the tragic backstories. If they had moved those to like around the halfway mark, or maybe just a little bit before the halfway mark, maybe I would have cared about these characters a little bit more in time to salvage the series just a little bit.
Yeah.
There was no way that the series was gonna be 100% redeemed.
No.
But I think that if they had moved those introduction episodes a little bit closer to the beginning, that could have gone a long way towards helping the storytelling out.
Yeah. I mean, the good ninjas fight the evil ninjas like 3 times before the, actual like final battle of the 12 episodes. And it's like the second or third time or whatever, you just don't care because you already know that the good ninja is going to get their ass beat. The evil ninjas are just going to be like, you know what, but we're not going to kill you because that's not what we're really here for, and we're going to leave. And so like there's just no stakes because you don't know what the evil ninjas are actually up to, but like it's giving you nothing, and the good ninjas are going to lose, and you have no reason to care about what this struggle represents because it doesn't represent anything. So like, yeah, if they move that stuff up a little bit, you'd be like, oh, well, okay, I like understand why these evil ninjas are motivated at least, but you don't. They're just evil ninja.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excuse me, I have to disagree. The stakes are completely high and incredibly deadly if you are an article of clothing.
Yeah.
Possibly a tree or bamboo grove. There was a good amount of tree and bamboo destruction to show off ninja powers. Other otherwise, there I think was one implied death of a character who you knew completely wasn't dead and was instead the primary antagonist, and then possible implied deaths of her and the big bad at the very end, but probably not.
You mean you don't believe that she made the ultimate sacrifice for the good of the team?
I mean, she tried to, but that's sort of what she tried to do at another point, and therefore someone rescued her. I'm sure we have not seen the end of Suzune Sensei because she's far too hot. So she has boobs. Now that does
she has glasses.
Yes, I mean, come on. I think that was my favorite part of the show. We can reveal our favorite parts of the show, and I think my favorite part of the show was a line of dialogue between Kiria, who is the main teacher of our good girl ninjas, and Daidoji, who is the largest breasted somehow eternal senior, and they're talking about the Serpent Academy girls, and when you're finally getting revealed that Rin probably didn't die in her old mission from here, as like, didn't you notice each of those girls had a more advanced version of the skills that Rin was developing when she was a student. Perhaps that's why they made sure that none of them fought me directly, so they wouldn't reveal their powers and it would stay a secret. I'm like, okay, well, I get it for Hamura, who's just like, hi, I have sword, so sword skill is fine. The puppeteer one was tied to the portaling and unifying the portaling, and okay, that was the dark magics that she was starting to step into, and maybe you know maybe the one who's kind of the strong assassin type is just like, okay, her style of hand-to-hand combat. But wait a minute, what about the other two? Yomi was like just giant sword, giant gun. I was like, wait, when was when was Rin using an umbrella machine gun flying around on a jet aircraft? Like, that was definitely advanced versions of the skills she was developing. I'd be like, oh, she was a goth lolly gunbrella enthusiast. I took the comment to the logical extremes, and I don't think it panned out quite the way they intended. So I amused myself.
If I had to choose a favorite part about this show, I would have to go with the evil ninjas not using ninja techniques so much as pulling giant guns out from under their skirts
Right.
and calling them techniques.
There's nothing phallic going on there.
Mm.
Yeah, so that was probably my favorite part is I loved when they would call out, the evil ninjas would call out a brand new technique and suddenly pull out giant freaking wrist mounted like guns with massive shells or a giant machine gun out from under the front of their skirt. And it's just like, yes, okay.
Shinobi techniques.
So yeah, so if I had to choose a favorite part, that would probably be it.
So I think I've got probably two. One is, I can't remember her name, the pink one, and she's like
Hibari.
And she's in the dungeon with the marionette lady, and it's like full on like dominatrix, and she just has no idea what the fuck is going on. She has no idea, which I thought was pretty funny. She's just like, what? And just trying to look cute. Like, I got a kick out of that. Also, Homura's fighting with like, while holding like 8 katanas or something, and she's got one between each of her fingers.
like claw gripping, full size, fucking no dachis.
Yeah. I'm just like, how? I mean, I don't even care. Like, I'm so fascinated by this. Like, please fight with it. And she really doesn't, right? Like, I was a little bit let down that you don't really get to see her actually do anything with that, you know? But yeah, no, that was great. I love that.
So, alright, we've gone on for about an hour. Is there anything that we're missing so far that we want to get into? CT, Brand, do either of you have anything else that we haven't brought up yet?
There was somebody on Twitter who was like, man, this is my favorite series or something, and I'm so excited. And whoever you are, you're awesome. I don't care how much we are like roasting this show. I am so glad that you love this show.
It happens.
I mean,
there's a super fan of everything.
Yeah. And you know, we are not right or anything like that. Screw us. This is a fun podcast, but like, you do you.
Yeah,
I'm right, but
yeah.
So
who hasn't loved some kind of like trashy anime among us, right? Like, he who is without sin can cast the first stone. You know what I mean?
Can bounce the first boob.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we will usually give a quick look in the production end, and I think the one thing that I find most interesting, you did mention, you know, that the studio did a good job for what it is. Do you know what studio this was?
Artland, who also did Gunslinger Girl Season 2.
And you know what else they did? Mushishi.
What?
The last damn thing
That's funny.
that we watched. I'm like, I don't. The similarities.
Well, it's funny because there was a joke cracked earlier about like, well, I don't know if we summed up the plot so much as the aesthetic, and I was like, I was thinking to myself, well, you know, when we watched Mushishi, like, aesthetic was definitely an important part of like
I know
the plot and all that
like
stuff.
98% aesthetic almost. But Yeah, so Artland. So we probably talked about them a bit. I mean, they did a bunch of. They're a weird studio because they did a bunch of stuff real early on that were kind of huge, like Super Dimensional Fortress Macross, Megazone 2-3, parts 1 and 2. They did a bunch of Legend of Galactic Heroes, a bunch of formative stuff and powerful stuff. And then I don't know what happened. At some point over time, they just did a lot of other things, and it's like other things in the neighborhood of Senran Kagura. And the director sort of came from Lost Universe and Slayers. He also did all of Shakugan no Shana and things that make sense, like Ikitosen or Taboo Tattoo. And I'm like, okay, it's got a bit of a type. The music sadly wasn't anything to write home about.
No, not really.
Yeah.
But this, I think it's the same composer who does the games and all of the anime.
So the next thing we're doing is Hyperdimension Neptunia, right?
Yes, definitely. It's all video game adaptations from here on in.
Yep.
And I guess we can lead into the announcement if you want to make it of the next thing that we are covering, which is
Yeah, so we
technically
did decide on this.
a video game adaptation. Or at least a visual novel one, that if you count that as a video game.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so the next series that we've decided on, we have decided that we're going to break the 2 core in 1 month barrier, and we are going to talk about Steins Gate up next. I don't know when we're going to get to this one, maybe within the next month, maybe within the next 2 months, but we're definitely going to be doing Steins Gate, the complete series, start to finish, for our next episode, so please look forward to that.
I think we decided within, like, before the first episode of this landed that it's like, okay, let's do a lot of 1 core stuff. How do we introduce them to 2 core? It's like, well, Steins Gate. So I think that's been in the back of our mind for a while now, and I'm glad we get to roll it out.
Yes, indeed. So, alright, let's go ahead. Let's wrap things up on that note. I'd like to thank CT and Brand for joining me for another fun discussion.
Yeah, thanks. That was fun.
It was a unique time.
It was cathartic.
Cathartic.
Yeah.
Yes. One might
And
say.
thank you to all of you for listening to us roast this show for the last hour or so. Please remember to give us a like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed what you heard. And otherwise, we will talk to you all again very soon. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, folks.
Bye.